When the first Hollow Knight released, it gave us something rare. A game that felt less like just play and more like stepping into a dream. The world of Halo Nest was hauntingly beautiful, a fallen kingdom buried beneath the ground, filled with the echoes of the past, every tunnel, every ruined temple, every quiet NPC sitting on a bench. It carried a feeling of loneliness, yet also comfort. You weren't simply playing, you were listening to a memory, walking through a story that had already ended long ago. The music, the art, the atmosphere, all of it worked together to create something that felt alive. Even though the kingdom was already dead, and that's why Hollow Knight left such a mark, it wasn't just about combat or exploration, it was about the feeling of weight, of history through silence. Now, after 7 years, we return, not to Hero Nest, but to a new kingdom called Farloom, a land of silk and of song. And just like before, it already feels special. Because this isn't just a sequel, it's a continuation to that dream. The anticipation for this game was long, and maybe that's what makes this game so powerful on just its release. Everyone was waiting to see what Team Cherry can create, and to be honest, they have nailed it. And now we are ready to step into Farloom, with Hornet as our guide, a familiar face in a new land, carrying us into another story of beauty, of struggle, and of song. Silksong begins with Hornet in chains, bound by threads of silk, carried away into a kingdom that is not her own, a kingdom called Farloom. This is where our journey takes place. Farloom is unlike Halo Nest in many ways, but its heart beats with the same depth of history. It is not a ruined world buried in silence, it is alive, still breathing, still singing. Its name tells us its truth, silk and song, two elements that shape everything here. The silk is everywhere, it ties bridges between cliffs, it binds enemies into strange shapes. It even holds the land itself together like stitches in a great tapestry. To Farloom, silk is not just a material, it's a power, memory, and tradition. The song is what gives Farloom its soul. Bells toll across the valleys, chants echo through temples. Even the simplest items you find, such as tools, charms, and fragments, they all seem to be touched by the melody, as though everything here belongs to a ritual order. Then Hornet herself. Farloom does not simply exist, it performs, it remembers, it signs. And then there are people. Farloom is not empty. Pilgrims climb into its towers in search of sacred truths. Worshippers wander its wilds, carrying their faith on their backs. The enemies we face are not just wild creatures, but guardians of tradition. Dressed in robes, masks, ceremonial patterns, they are defenders of a kingdom that refuses to let go of its way. Every region of Farloom speaks to us in its own voice. The green wilds breathe with natural beauty filled with vines, silk threads woven into the earth. The glowing temples shine with golden light like sacred places untouched by decay. And the tall towers, climbing endlessly into the sky, remind us that this kingdom is not buried. It is reaching upward as through trying to escape its own suffering through faith and ritual. This is the beauty of Silksong's lore. It doesn't explain itself directly. Instead, it asks us to notice the small things, a statue at the edge of a cliff, a bell that rings when no one is near, a pilgrim's mask left abandoned on the ground. These pieces tell us Farloom's history, not in words, but in feelings. Hornet's journey through this land is not only about survival, it is about uncovering why she was brought here, and what this kingdom truly stands for. In Hollow Knight, we explored the silence of a fallen kingdom. In Silksong, we walk through a kingdom still alive, fragile, mysterious, but alive. And that makes every discovery feel like a song being sung for the first time, even though it has been echoing through Farloom for ages. Hornet is not just another character in this world. She is a thread that connects Hero Nest to Farloom, and her origins are as mysterious as the kingdoms themselves. She is the daughter of two very different beings. Her father was the Pale King, the same ruler who shaped Hero Nest, who gave it order and tried to contain the infection that plagued it. Her mother was Hera the Beast, one of the three dreamers who sacrificed themselves to seal away the radiance. Hornet is the child of two worlds, born of royalty, yet also tied to the wild and primal. This alone makes her story unique. Unlike the knight, who was created as a vessel without will or voice, Hornet was born with both. She speaks, she feels, she remembers. She is not empty, she is alive, and that life is what makes her journey in Silksong so compelling. When we see her in Farloom, she is not wandering by choice. She is captured, taken against her will, and placed in a land she does not know. But Hornet is not a passive character. She fights with agility, with precision, with a strength that feels different from quite the endurance of the night. Her very movement tells us who she is. Fast, sharp, untamed, yet graceful. Like the needle she wields, her origins also carry a burden. Being the daughter of the Pale King means she is tied to Halonest's past. Being the daughter of Hera means she is tied to sacrifice. Everywhere she goes, she carries those histories with her, whether she chooses to or not. In many ways, Hornet represents what comes after tragedy. She is born from a world that already fell, and her story is about carrying that weight into a new kingdom. That is why her role in Silksong feels so important. Hornet is not silent like the knight. She speaks, she argues, she remembers. And that makes her journey through Farloom not just about uncovering secrets, but about answering questions of her own identity. Who is she, beyond the daughter of two powerful figures? What does her presence mean in the kingdom bound by silk and guided by song? Hornet is not just exploring Farloom, she is being tested by it. Her origins make her someone who cannot escape history, but also someone strong enough to shape what comes next. She is not a vessel, not a shadow. She is alive, and Silksong is her story. The Knight, the small and silent wanderer who we controlled in the first game, is more than just a nameless character. To understand them, we need to go back to the very roots of Halonest, to the desperate mages of God King who feared the light. The Pale King, the ruler of Halonest, saw his kingdom threatened by the Radiance, an ancient higher being of light, once worshipped before his time. When his rule spread, he demanded royalty and belief in him instead. But belief is not so easy. The Radiance lingered in the dreams of bugs, fostering, growing, and eventually unleashing a plague of infection that spreads through the land. To fight this, the Pale King created the Vessels. He descended into the abyss, a place where the void, a dark, formless substance, dwelled. There, he and the White Lady gave birth to countless children. These children, born of both kingly blood and the void, were meant to be empty, without will, without mind, without voice. Pure hollowness so that the radiance could be imprisoned within them. But this act was not without cruelty. Thousands of these children were cast into the abyss, crawling in the darkness. Many never climbing out, only a few reached the surface. From them, the Pale King chose the one he believed to be pure, the Hollow Knight. This chosen child was chained and sealed and sacrificed to contain the radiance. And yet, among those discarded was our knight, small, forgotten, and left to nothingness. They were not chosen, they were abandoned, and yet, in their silent journey back into the Halonest, they rose to become the very savior of this land. And that is the beauty of the knight's story. They are not a hero by design, but by endurance. He is the proof that even the forgotten can shape destiny. Now compare this to Hornet, and you see something entirely different. Hornet is no empty vessel. She is born of the Pale King and Hera the Beast, one of the three dreamers who sealed away the Hollow Knight. Hera agreed to this union in exchange for her people's safety, knowing her child would be marked by sacrifice. Hornet was born into purpose, into will, into voice. She is sharp, where the knight is silent. She is bound to her duty, but not empty of self. Thinking of the contrast here, the knight moves with the weight of silence, born to contain, to endure, to lock away the plague. Hornet moves with speed and ferocity, weaving silk as both a weapon and lifeline. Where the knight's power comes from the stillness of the void, Hornet's power flows from threads, flexible, living, connecting everything. Their very gameplay reflects who they are. The knight heals slowly, cautiously, carving strength out of stillness. Hornet birds her wounds with threads in an instant, never stopping her flow. The knight strikes with patience, step by step, while Hornet leaps and dances like a song given form. But at heart of both of them is the same tragedy. Both are children of the Pale King's decision. The knight abandoned to the abyss, Hornet born out of her mother's sacrifice. There are two answers to the same question. How far will power go to protect a kingdom? And in this, they are mirrors. The knight represents silence, void, and forgotten strength. Hornet represents memory, voice, and the thread that ties the future. The knight sealed the past. Hornet must confront what comes after. And that is why the anticipation for Silksong feels so powerful. It's not just another story in the same world. It is the continuation of that legacy, a chance to see what becomes of Halo Nest's choices through the eyes of a daughter of sacrifice, not the child of abandonment. One of the most beautiful things about Hollow Knight was the world itself that told you the story. The cracked statues, the fading carvings, the infected husks, everything was a memory left behind for us to piece together. Silksong continues the tradition, but in an entirely new land, a kingdom called Farloom. Unlike Halo Nest, which was built downward into caverns, Farloom rises upwards. It is a kingdom of spires, towers, and peaks, almost like it's reaching for the heavens. Even in this shift, there's meaning. Where Halo Nest sank deeper into the earth, consumed by infection and memory, Farloom climbs skyward, bound by ritual and faith. Everywhere we look in the revealed glimpses of Silksong, we see traces of history. The bells that echo across the land suggest a society that worships sounds and song. The grand architecture hints at a kingdom proud of its rituals, and yet, just like Halo Nest, it feels empty, broken, and abandoned. Beauty layered over tragedy. The enemies themselves tell us stories. Many of the foes Hornet faces appear ceremonial. Bugs dressed in robes, adorned with masks, carrying weapons that look like relics rather than tools of survival. This tells us that Farloom is not just another kingdom, but one bound by ritual, perhaps even more deeply than Halo Nest. Even the materials we see carry meaning. The presence of silk is everywhere. It binds, connects, and creates. It's not just Hornet's weapon, it's the part of the very kingdom itself. Woven into its design, silk, unlike void, is alive. It stretches, it dies, it heals. And if we look closely, we realize that Farloom is a kingdom where silk is more than just a material. It is the essence of life, faith, and control. Take note of the bells again. Bells in myth and ritual often symbolize summoning, calling for marking sacred events. In Farloom, they may represent the constant presence of order, faith, and authority. Every time a bell rings, it is the voice of kingdom's history echoing. And then there are the small things. Lanterns swaying on forgotten paths, carved patterns on broken walls, ruins that seem to hum with memory. These are not just background art, they are the whispers of Farloom's past. They are the little pieces that tell us the kingdom, too, has a story of rise and fall, of beauty and ruin. That is the genius of Team Cherry's design. They don't hand us the lore in words, they let us wander, observe, and connect the dots. Just as we piece together the tale of the Radiance in Halo Nest, in Silksong, we will piece together the tale of the kingdom that reaches for the skies, but may be wound down by its own rituals. Every statue, every bell, every thread of silk in Silksong is not just decoration, it is history, it is memory, it is story, waiting for us to listen. In Hollow Knight, the knight's power came from the void. That black substance flowing through their very being gave them the strength to survive. The knight was born empty, designed to be a vessel. Their power was stillness, their weapon was silence, and their connection to the void made them something beyond moral things. When they healed, they paused, focusing their soul, slowly regaining their strength. Everything about their style reflected patience, endurance, and emptiness. Hornet, however, is entirely different. She's not a vessel, she's alive, full of will, full of voice, and so her power is not void but silk. Where the void consumes and isolates, silk connects and binds. Hornet uses her silk not to just attack but to heal, to climb, to weave the world around her into something she can control. Even in the gameplay we have seen, the difference shines. She binds her wounds instantly with a thread. She leaps and dances through the air with her silk. She fights like a bug like living song, fast and fluid, where the knight was deliberate and steady. But this isn't just mechanics, it's meaning. The knight's void powers symbolized hollowness, the sacrifice of self for a greater purpose. Their strength came from what they lacked. They were chosen to contain, to be a prison. Hornet silk represents the opposite. It symbolizes life, creation, and connection. Silk is used to weave, to heal, to tie together. Her powers are not about emptiness, but about presence. They are an expression of their identity, sharp, fast, unrelenting, yet always connected to the threads of her origin and duty. This contrast shows us something profound. The knight's journey was about stillness, silence, and enduring the past. Hornet's journey, though, is about movement, song, and shaping the future. Void is the abyss, silk is the thread that crosses it. And you play as Hornet, every dash, every leap, every instant feels alive. Like she's writing her story in motion, and that's the beauty of it. While the night shows us the power of emptiness, Hornet will show us the power of being whole. The two together will complete a story, one of sacrifice and one of survival, one of silence and one of song, one of endings and one of continuations. The world of Hollow Knight and Silksong is not just about kingdoms of bugs, fallen rulers, or ancient gods. It's about something deeper, about how beauty and pain are always intertwined. Heronist was a kingdom of silence, crumbling under the weight of memory. Farloom, in contrast, is a kingdom of song, rising towards the heavens, but bound by region. Both are mirrors of each other, both telling a different kind of story. But no matter how high we build up and how deep we dig, there is always a cost. What makes these games truly special is how they capture the feeling of existing in a world much bigger than yourself. As the night, we were forgotten as a child of abyss, abandoned and left behind. Yet we walked into that broken kingdom, found purpose in its silence as Hornet, though we are the daughter of sacrifice, born from duty and bound by fate. Yet we climb into a kingdom of towers, carrying not just a thread but a voice. These games remind us that suffering is not meaningless, that even in ruin there is beauty. That every broken statue, every silent bell, every husk wandering the roads once had a story, a purpose, a dream. And in uncovering them, we are not just learning about the world, we are learning about ourselves.